Anything less than the union of Europe as a whole, and we look forward with confidence to the day when that union will be achieved.
Now home for our festival shall we like brothers toast in song. Our land, the Slovene people, may God endow with lifetime.
From Stettin in the Baltic to Trieste in the Adriatic, an iron curtain has descended across the continent.
Будет только одно знамя развиваться – знамя дружбы, знамя мира, знамя братства. И это знамя, на нем будет написано коммунистическое общество.
Odwagi, ja jestem, nie bójcie się, nie bójcie się.
Some parties have said they would like Slovenia to leave Yugoslavia.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Situacija u zemlji je dramatična. Na početku smo građanskog rata.
Jugoslavije ni več. Gre za Slovenijo.
May unity, joy, blessing return, may we be reconciled.
We must never forget that at its origins, the European Union brought together nations emerging from the ruins of the devastating Second World War and united them in a project for peace built on supranational institutions representing the common European interest. Through its transformative power, the European Union was able to reunite almost all the European continent. Even in these difficult times, the European Union remains an inspiration.
God grant you Slovene women long life, oh notice flowers to our own kindred maiden, the like is not found anywhere.
We are working not only for this generation, we are also working for the next generation. I'm proud because I can receive the Nobel Prize for Peace on behalf of the European Union.
Več kot 1700 primerov okužbe z novim koronavirusom.
The sheer numbers of people succumbing to the coronavirus is overwhelming every hospital.
Scoraj za velja.
Ladies and gentlemen, President of the International Olympic Committee, Mr. Thomas Bach.
Dear President of Slovenia, Your Excellency Borut Pahor. Dear Prime Minister of Slovenia, Your Excellency Janez Janša. Your Excellencies, dear friends. Thank you for inviting me to address you today at the Bled Strategic Forum. Just 3 weeks ago, the safe Olympic Games Tokyo 2020 came to a close. I would like to congratulate our gracious Slovenian hosts and indeed all of you on the very successful and in these unique times extremely meaningful participation of your Olympic teams in the Games of the 32nd Olympiad. For the first time since the COVID-19 pandemic began, the entire world came together again at the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020, when the athletes from 205 national Olympic committees and the IOC Refugee Olympic team came together at the Games. They sent a powerful message, a message of peace, solidarity, of joy, inspiration, and hope. This is why these Olympic Games give all of us hope and faith in the future after a tiring pandemic period. The IOC and the whole Olympic movement are values-driven. We share with the European Union the values of solidarity and peace. When you discuss in the next 2 days the future of Europe, here at the Bled Strategic Forum, values will guide your debate. The discussion takes place at a very important time, when Slovenia holds the presidency of the Council of the European Union. Sport can contribute to the future of Europe in a unique and powerful way. It can continue to play and even increase its positive role in our communities and the European society at large for broader social, educational, and health outcomes. Sport has a great social significance by being the glue which bonds communities together. It is important to emphasize that sport can only make this contribution to society if the specific solidarity-based model of sport is supported by you, the public authorities. This is why we need to strengthen the European sport model and its robust solidarity funding mechanisms. As you discuss the many challenges and opportunities for the future of Europe, I hope that you will take this important role of sport and the European sport model into kind consideration. The post-coronavirus world will need sport and the values of sport. It will need more solidarity because there is no peace without solidarity. So I invite you to join hands, to work together towards a healthier, resilient and sustainable future in Europe and beyond. In this Olympic spirit, I wish you fruitful discussions and a very successful forum. Thank you very much and all the best.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Slovenia, Mr. Andrej Logar.
Distinguished guests, President of National Assembly, Prime Ministers, President of the European Council, President of the European Parliament, Ministers, Commissioners, High Representatives of the international institutions, ladies and gentlemen. A very well and warm welcome to Slovenia. I'm grateful for your participation in the 16th Bled Strategic Forum. It is rewarding to see the forum grow in size and significance, proving its value and potential for growth year after year. Even though we seem to be approaching the fourth or even fifth wave of the pandemic, this year it was again possible to hold the Bled Strategic Forum thanks to all those who decided to get vaccinated, to the general acceptance of the recovered, vaccinated, tested rule, and to the swift implementation of European Digital Vaccination Certificate. Dear all, this year, the Bled Strategic Forum taking place during the second Slovenian presidency of the Council of the EU. Both the presidency and this year forum were designated with the view to finding solutions to existing challenges and devoting our attention to the future of Europe, our common future. Thus, the first leaders panel, titled "To Stand and Withstand," will explore the idea of how the EU could rise up to the challenges it faces. It is our duty as Europeans to do whatever it takes for the EU to continue providing a safe and stable environment for our fellow citizens. We also believe that the future of our continent and that of the EU is closely linked to the continuation of the EU enlargement process. Accession of the Western Balkan countries should be part of our common vision, so we dedicated the second leaders panel to this topic. A Spanish philosopher, George Santayana, said, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." With that in mind, we will benefit from the experience of former leaders talking about the past development in the EU and sharing their advice for our common future. Later parts of the program will feature more debates focusing on current topics such as digitalization, climate change, economic growth, diversity, common values, and building strategic partnership with Indo-Pacific and transatlantic cooperation. The EU in 2021 is not the same as EU of 2004 when Slovenia joined it. In the past decade and a half, the EU has weathered several heavy storms and has been challenged by economic and financial crisis, Brexit, migration crisis, and ultimately the COVID-19 pandemic. Now we are facing the security and humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan, but also the crisis of the Union global standing and indeed of the West as a whole. The times of somehow idealistic views of the EU of the past are long over. The world has changed dramatically. It has become more interconnected and interdependent. Information flows in real time to all corners of the globe. Today, no one can shy away from the consequences of wars or conflicts or climate change, even those far away from our homes. The optimism of the 2004 enlargement has been replaced by a heavy dose of political realism and even pessimism. But there is also wide consensus on what truly matters, namely that the EU is still able to deliver, having shown a remarkable degree of resilience and perseverance. Still, owing to the challenges of the last 15 years, the EU has started to behave more like a problem-solving union instead of a community of adopting a strategic approach. This is why the Slovenian presidency has put topics such as resilience, open strategic autonomy, and conference on the future of Europe at the top of its priorities. We need a vision of where we want to see the European Union in the future. If the time of crisis has been all about solidarity, the next one must be about responsibility, a commitment to our citizens that we will fight climate change, protect them from pandemics, and ensure a safe and stable environment for our economies and societies. This also entails assuming responsibility in the world for projecting our values and the European way of life globally, most importantly, in our immediate neighborhood. I want to pay my respect to more than 4.5 million victims of coronavirus worldwide. Over 200 million people have been infected, more than 35 million in the EU alone. The virus has put a halt on social life and the economy for the greater part of 2020 and 2021. It is estimated that COVID-19 took away more than 5 million jobs in the first half of 2020. The EU's economy has shrunk by 6%. Yet, in the second quarter of 2021, we see a robust recovery across the EU. The fact that we are here today, able to discuss the future of Europe in person, is a testimony to the resilience of the Union and its ability to learn from its own past mistakes. Instead of the restrictive approach adopted during the economic crisis in the past decade, this time, the EU was able to agree on a substantial recovery fund of 750 billion euros. The fund, coupled with massive national stimulus packages adopted across the EU, has managed to put the European economy back on track and secure jobs. What was inconceivable in 2011 became a reality in 2021. For the first time in history, the EU is borrowing funds to finance recovery in its member states. This is not pure pragmatism. Such bold decisions were informed by our values, the very same values that the EU must be able to project globally too. For example, the EU has made immense progress when it comes to fighting climate change. The already ambitious climate policy has been upgraded with 55% emission reduction target. Yet, we cannot ignore the fact that the EU is responsible for only 8% of the global emissions. It is therefore clear that our main task must be to convince other partners to adopt similar ambitious approaches. The COP26 in Glasgow during our presidency will provide a good opportunity for it. The timing of the conference on the future of Europe coincides with the COVID-19 pandemic. It is only natural that one might wonder whether the time of crisis should also be the time of evaluation. Many argue that Europe had better save its energy and focus on recovery instead. However, it has become clear that waiting for a crisis-free time is pointless, as a new crisis might emerge any moment. We must identify strategic responses to the challenges facing both our citizens' everyday lives and of those of Europe as a continent. We must identify the policies where the EU is a global example and incorporate the lessons learned from the past crisis. In a relatively short period, European citizens will engage in discussion on extremely important issues: climate change and environment, health, ensuring a stronger economy and social justice and cohesion, effectively implementing the digital transition, European democracy, values and rights, rule of law. The EU's role in the world also needs to be discussed, and one should not shy away from debates on security and migration. To wind up, these important topics will be the subject of the discussion over the next 2 days. We do not wish to evade the issues that might be controversial or difficult to discuss. On the contrary, we hope to provide an open exchange which will prepare a basis for further deliberation during the Slovenian presidency of the Council of the European Union. The Bled Strategic Forum has gained increased importance over the last 16 years. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Bled Strategic Forum team, the Center for European Perspective, the institution and strategic and other partners who have made this year's forum possible. This year's Bled Strategic Forum has attracted an exceptional number of high-level speakers and guests, which was possible thanks to the remarkable international engagement of the Prime Minister Janez Janša. I wish to give you all a very warm welcome and hope you will involve in many lively and fruitful discussions. Under the impression of yesterday's Mass offered by His Eminence Pietro Parolin, I would like to end my address with a quote by Pope John Paul II. The future starts today, not tomorrow. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, President of the European Council, Mr. Charles Michel.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. President of Slovenia, dear Prime Minister of Slovenia, Excellencies, it's a great pleasure to be in Bled today, and this forum is a key event for European debate, and thank you, dear Prime Minister and the Slovenian Presidency, for giving it its weight this year, a few months after the launch, dear David, of the Conference on the Future of Europe. A European future which is inconceivable without the Western Balkans, and with whom we will be holding a summit in 1 month's time here in Slovenia. And that's why I'm so pleased to see many of our friends who are leaders of those countries. Excellencies, dear friends, talking about the future of Europe can mean talking about what the EU should be in the not too distant future, its composition, its relationship with the entire European geographic area. It can mean also talking about how it's organized and how it works, it can also mean contemplating how our union should involve more our citizens. These are questions behind this conference on the future of Europe. The European future I wish to discuss is our project of values, freedoms, our project of prosperity, and our project of influence. European integration began with the coal and steel community, a project for economic prosperity. And Jean Monnet said from the outset, Europe will not be made all at once, but through concrete achievements which first create a de facto solidarity. Solidarity between free and democratic countries that share the same values. These are the roots, but also the future of our union. And as our union has taken shape, it has also become a project of influence. Our large single market has made us the biggest trader in the world, and in turn, the largest exporter of standards known as the Brussels effect. And yet, the standard we propagate most successfully in our neighborhood is democracy, fundamental values, and the rule of law, the lifeblood of the European Union. This standard cannot be imposed. It's only meaningful and effective if it's chosen freely. But we must also clearly state that it is both the gateway to our union and vital to a proper functioning. So, dear friends, what concrete steps are we taking to drive our union forward? Since 2019, we have been striving for prosperity through our strategy for the twin climate and digital transitions. We want to harness the full economic potential of protecting our planet and the new and infinite opportunity of the digital revolution. But this strategy is not just about prosperity. It is an integral part of our project centered around human dignity and fulfillment, based on respect for freedoms and diversity. And the goal of our climate transition is a sustainable model that respects the planet and humankind. It will unleash a paradigm shift that we cannot yet fully imagine. And the Fit for 55 legislative debate will be certainly controversial, but it will open the door to this new era. Our digital ambition also goes hand in hand with our focus on freedom, privacy, and human rights. We do not want a big brother society. Our citizens must be the masters of their private lives and their private data. Dear friends, we launched our strategy for the twin transitions in 2019, before the COVID pandemic. And COVID has only doubled our resolve to implement this strategy. And today, our climate and digital goals are more relevant than ever. So, we did not need to invent an additional strategy for recovery. We already have one. And our aim for a more sustainable model and a more caring society is, I'm convinced, the best response to the extraordinary shock of COVID-19. The pandemic struck at what we value most: our health, our families, our well-being. But it also reinforced the meaning and purpose of our union: human dignity and solidarity. Dear friends, how we responded to COVID-19 is also a lesson for the future. We made mistakes, but we also achieved great success. We reacted much more quickly than in previous crises. We suspended the Stability Pact and relaxed state aid rules. We adopted a package of huge financial preventive measures, and especially we agreed a multi-annual budget together with a massive recovery fund financed by common European borrowing. And let's not forget, we decided to trust in science and research, and today we are the world's leading producers and exporters of vaccines. And through our common approach, we have given equal access to all member states, to all our citizens. 70% of the EU's adult population is now vaccinated. And 3 billion euros, with 3 billion euros, we are the main contributor to COVAX. COVAX has delivered over 220 million doses in the world, and EU member states have pledged to donate over 160 million doses by the end of 2021. We are also leading efforts to build up manufacturing capacity globally in Africa, for example. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, European influence will be, I think, our greatest challenge in the coming years. And Afghanistan has offered a stark demonstration. As a global economic and democratic power, can Europe be content with a situation where we are unable to ensure unassisted the evacuation of our citizens and those under threat because they have helped us? In my view, we do not need another such geopolitical event to grasp that the EU must strive for greater decision-making autonomy and greater capacity for action in the world. The European Union has citizens to protect, interests to defend, and values and a rules-based international order to promote. And of course, we cannot ignore strategic developments in the world. We do not need more strategic autonomy because we want to be stronger and more influential, because we want to have greater impact, and because we want to strengthen our alliances. Strong allies make for stronger alliances. The world has become more interdependent, but while interdependence is a good thing, dependence is not. And working on our strategic autonomy to exert greater influence requires work in 3 areas. First, bolstering our economic power. And for this, we must strengthen the single market and we must complete the banking union and the capital market union. Those topics will be on the agenda of our Euro Summit in December. Second point, reinforcing our neighborhoods, and that means prioritizing the Western Balkans, the Eastern Partnership, and a major alliance with Africa. And connectivity should be a pillar of our engagement. Connectivity is not just infrastructure and networks. It encompasses a wide range of ventures and policies that bring people and societies closer together. We must shape and brand our own connectivity offer to neighbors and other like-minded partners. It should be anchored in our values and based on our extraordinary capacities, the financial resources, our reputation, our credibility, and of course, our regulatory power. Third point, we must reflect openly and clear-eyed on a new stage in collective security and defense capabilities, especially in the wake of the Afghan crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, our European Union is a project of values, prosperity, and influence. And COVID will not slow us down. On the contrary, it will galvanize our determination to innovate and to take bold decisions. And let me end with one last thought. Our European Union is not a static union. It's dynamic. It is inspired by an idea bigger than itself. We started with 6 member states, and today we count 27. The EU has always been enriched by those who wanted to join and eventually did so. Each enlargement made the Union better, brought us where we are today and who we are today. A union of ideas, of solidarity, of innovation, of diversity. We know the EU is important to the Western Balkans, but the Western Balkans are equally important to the EU. Together, we can dream and build our European future for a better world. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Slovenia, Mr. Janez Janša.
Dear Presidents, Prime Ministers, Excellencies, dear friends. 30 years ago, we Slovenians established our own country. 1 year before that, we fought for and held our first multi-party elections. At that time, as many as 90% of voters supported the dream of an independent country at the referendum. On only one other occasion did so many Slovenian citizens support one specific decision, and that was the decision for Slovenia to join the European Union. Being a part of the European Union was never merely an economic opportunity for us. It was the return to a family connected by the values of respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms, and also for democracy. All that has been taken from us or violated in communist Yugoslavia in the past. This return to Europe coincided with the fundamental historical mission of the European Union, spurred by the fall of totalitarian communist regimes in Europe, the mission to establish an integral and free Europe which is at peace with itself and also with its neighborhood. But as it was also said before, the European Union today is very different than it was at the time of Slovenia's accession, as well as the first Slovenian presidency of the Council of the European Union. We could say that the Slovenian presidency in the first half of the 2008 was the last presidency not marked in one way or another by a severe crisis. After that, they have come one after another. Financial crisis, migratory crisis, the occupation of Crimea, the creation of frozen conflicts in our eastern neighborhood, Brexit, and the coronavirus pandemic since the beginning of the last year. After all that, we strongly hope the time has come when the actions of the European Union can and must become strategic and long-term, oriented towards achieving the goal set by the fathers of the European Union. A Europe that is free, whole, and at peace with itself and its neighborhood. After the Second World War, the founding fathers of the European Union were faced with the challenge how to restructure relations among the nations of Europe. 10 out of 11 of them were associated with Christian Democrat parties. Therefore, they knew the motto of St. Augustine: unity in necessary things, freedom in doubtful things, charity in all things. From this motto derive the mechanisms of the European unification idea. consensus-seeking and mutual respect, subsidiarity and solidarity. These are our crucial principles. Unfortunately, it seems that along the way we sometimes moved away or sometimes even against them. We would be well advised to follow the lead of the EU founding fathers and think about the implementation of these principles in the EU today and tomorrow. And I think this is the defining question of our time. How to interpret and implement the values and mechanisms of consensus-seeking and mutual respect, subsidiarity and solidarity, a common good that includes the good of every participating nation. This is the condition for a joint response to the crucial development challenges, economic, demographic and societal, that Europe is faced with today. The debate on the future of Europe comes at a decisive moment. After a decade of crisis that uncovered many of the EU's deficiencies and gaps, but sometimes also our resilience and also unexpected strength and ability to deliver. But today, clearly, there are different visions about the future of the European Union, future of Europe, but in these differences we cannot afford exclusion. This is why we are so keen on having a sincere and open discussion about our common future, and this is because we want to preserve our European family. The debate needs procedural fairness, where everyone can participate, be heard, and listened to. Only so we can understand each other. The relational dynamics with the European Union needs to reflect much more the consensus-seeking and mutual respect as in relations within family than relations between international actors. As such, the debate on the future of Europe is about learning and also understanding. This will enable consensus-seeking as well as mutual respect, subsidiarity, and also solidarity. And this will then allow the EU to face external challenges which we cannot do it successfully if we are divided. The COVID pandemic unmasked again the so far latent tensions in the international system, and this is a struggle for global governance. The EU has been at the forefront of this struggle, but unfortunately, not always as an actor, but also as a stage for that struggle. This is our own fault due to some unnecessary fights within the EU that are occupying our political agenda. Necessary crucial conditions of a good strategy are historical sensibility and a moral compass. Hence, relying only on the normative power of the EU will not be enough. Thus, the debate on the future of Europe is foremost a discussion about who we are, about understanding the logos, pathos, and ethos of European nations. This will also enable us to broaden the strategic horizon of the European Union's foreign policy. The main challenge of European unification is to assure unity while preserving diversity. Europe has not yet found all the answers to this question. In a quest, we do not have to reinvent the wheel, but, as I said at the beginning, we have to return to the origins. Consensus-seeking and mutual respect, subsidiarity, and solidarity. I started this speech with a memory from 30 years ago. Let us conclude with a look at the next 3 decades. We imagine and we see a Europe and European Union that is based on European civilization. A strong Europe made of strong member states. Strong Europe able to project and also to execute soft and also hard power. European Union enlarged with new members from Western Balkans and also our eastern neighborhood. A Europe with efficient and lean European Union institutions. We see a Europe that is at peace with itself and set in peaceful and prosperous surroundings. We also see Europe as a part of a strong North Atlantic alliance, as a world leader in terms of freedom and quality of life, as home to justice and prosperity. We also see Europe as a place of dynamic and free expression of opinions, cooperation, high standards in terms of respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms, and in terms of the rule of law, which is based on equal standards for all and on the cooperation of democratic institutions which are elected by the people. This is what the debate on the future of Europe is about. How do we get there? To an Europe whole and free and at peace with itself. I am confident that this debate can deliver, and thank you to all of you who came to Bled Strategic Forum to help us achieving this goal. Thank you very much.
Esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Leaders Panel on the Future of Europe. My name is Marko Balažić, and I will be your host for the panel titled To Stand and Withstand. Before we kick off the discussion, I would like to cordially invite His Excellency, Mr. David Sassoli, President of the European Parliament, to give a keynote address.
Buongiorno.
Good morning, anyone.
Caro saluto al Presidente della Repubblica, al signor Primo Ministro, a
Prime
tutti
Minister,
i primi ministri, alle
Prime Ministers,
eccellenze, ai
Excellencies,
cari amici che
President
sono
of the
presenti
Republic, dear friends,
in questo forum così importante.
all of you here in this
Ringraziamo
important forum.
la Presidenza slovena per
Let me
aver
thank
organizzato
you and thank the
un
Slovenian presidencies because they
luogo di
organized
incontro e di confronto fra
this
noi.
meeting, this debate.
Ce n'è
among
molto
ourselves.
bisogno.
We need something like that.
E questa iniziativa testimonia l'importanza
This
che la
initiative
Presidenza
shows
slovena
the importance that the Slovenian presidency
attribuisce al
attaches
Parlamento europeo,
to the
alle
European
istituzioni
Parliament,
europee,
to the European institutions,
come luoghi chiave
because they are
per
the places
dare risposte
where
alle
we can
sfide che
find
abbiamo di fronte
responses to our challenges today
e per rafforzare la democrazia
in order to
europea.
strengthen the European democracy.
Mentre discutiamo del futuro dell'Europa,
As we debate about the future of Europe,
vorrei riaffermare il ruolo centrale dei cittadini
let me
europei
reiterate the central role
e
of the
della
European
democrazia
citizens and
parlamentare,
the parliamentary
in
democracy,
particolare in questa fase
in particular in this stage,
in cui l'Unione Europea
when
deve
the
affrontare
European Union
sfide
needs to
inedite
face
e
unprecedented
nuove.
challenges, new challenges.
Non dobbiamo mai considerare, cari
We
amici,
must never,
il
dear
mandato che
friends,
ci hanno conferito i
consider
cittadini
our mandate,
come un
the
dato
mandate
acquisito
that our citizens gave us
o
as
come una
a
carta bianca
blank check, as an
ma
award.
piuttosto come un mandato
We must see
solenne
that as a solemn
a
mandate.
riaffermare quotidianamente
We have to act
i
every
valori
day
universali
on the
europei
basis of the
ai
European and
quali le
universal
nostre
values
costituzioni e i nostri
which were
trattati
laid down in our
ci
treaties,
richiamano.
in our constitutions.
A questo proposito vorrei
And in this
condividere con
connection,
voi
Let me share with you
i risultati dell'ultimo
the
Eurobarometro
results of the latest Eurobarometer.
che ci sono stati forniti giusto ieri,
Yesterday we got these results.
che mostrano l'importanza
And these data
cruciale
show how important
che i cittadini europei
the
attribuiscono al
European
rispetto dello
citizens
Stato di diritto.
consider the respect of the rule of law.
Siamo rimasti molto sorpresi
We're very surprised to see that
perché
because
l'81% degli
81% of
europei
Europeans
crede che l'Unione
believe that the
Europea
European Union
dovrebbe concedere fondi solo agli
should
Stati
be
membri che
allocate funds
rispettano lo
only to
Stato
the
di diritto.
European states, the member states that respect the rule of law.
E questo tema, insieme alla democrazia,
And this subject, together
è la
with
priorità
democracy, is the top priority
assoluta per molte opinioni pubbliche dei nostri
for many
27 paesi.
public opinions of our member states, 27 member states.
L'85% degli europei
85%
crede
of
che il
Europeans
rispetto
believe that the respect of
dei
the
nostri valori
of
di
our
democrazia, diritti
values
umani,
such as
Stato di
human rights,
diritto,
democracy, rule
dovrebbe
of
essere
law
una priorità anche
should be
nella nostra
a
politica
priority
estera.
in our foreign policy too.
Questi valori di democrazia, di
These
libertà, di
values
uguaglianza,
such as democracy, rule of
rispetto
law,
della
equality,
dignità umana,
respect for human dignity,
dei diritti umani,
human rights.
non sono
These values
non sono parole vuote
are not just empty words
se non si traducono in azioni
unless
quotidiane.
we must translate
E la
them in
democrazia è solo un
actions.
concetto teorico.
Democracy is only a theoretical
porta benefici
concept, notion,
tangibili ai nostri
unless
cittadini.
it brings tangible benefits to our citizens,
Soluzioni alle sfide
solutions to the
che
challenges
affrontano
that we're
le
facing,
donne, gli uomini.
women, men,
Se non crea condizioni
unless it creates the conditions
che permettono di godere loro
whereby they can
di libertà,
enjoy freedom,
di diritti fondamentali,
fundamental
di
rights,
maggiore uguaglianza e
more
dignità.
equality and dignity.
La questione del nostro futuro comune è
The
fondamentale
issue of our common future
e più
is
che mai
crucial,
urgente.
and more so now.
Sono
It's
lieto che il
urgent.
Parlamento europeo l'abbia portata
And
al
I'm happy that the
centro
European
dei
Parliament
dibattiti
put it at the heart of the
dei nostri
debate,
governi, in particolare
in
con la
particular
conferenza
of our
sul futuro
government's
dell'Europa
agenda with the Conference on the Future of
che
Europe
abbiamo così ardentemente
that
richiesto.
we wholeheartedly demanded.
La pandemia Covid-19
The COVID-19 pandemic
che ha sconvolto la nostra vita quotidiana, le nostre
upset
società,
our daily impact, our daily lives, our
ci
societies,
impone una
but
riflessione
forces
strategica
us to take another look,
a
to
medio
have
e a lungo
a
termine.
long, medium-term strategic
costringe
outlook,
e ci costringe a
and
ripensare
forces us
anche
to
alle relazioni tra
rethink the
istituzioni,
relationships
cittadini.
between institutions,
e territori.
citizens, and regions.
Questa crisi ha reso
So
consapevoli
this crisis
tutti
made us aware, all of us,
della nostra forza e della nostra
of
debolezza.
our strength and our weakness.
Sappiamo dove possiamo essere
We
efficienti,
know where we are efficient,
ma sappiamo
but we
anche
also
dove
know
dobbiamo migliorare.
where we must do better.
E se la crisi ha scosso
And
le
while
nostre
the
società
crisis upset
e
our
gli equilibri che
balance,
esistevano
our
prima della
societies, our previous
pandemia,
balance before the pandemic,
ci ha anche spinto nelle avversità
it also
nuove,
showed us
profonde,
in this difficult time,
a nuovi livelli di cooperazione
it showed us new levels of cooperation
e a una solidarietà europea
and
senza precedenti.
European solidarity, an unprecedented one.
Abbiamo capito tutti
So all of us, we
che di
all
fronte al
understood that when we're
Covid-19
faced with a pandemic,
era
COVID-19,
conveniente la solidarietà.
solidarity was convenient.
Oggi abbiamo bisogno
Today we need
che tutti gli sforzi che sono stati fatti in questo
that
periodo
all the
così
efforts
difficile
that were made in such a difficult time,
diventino la nuova
we
politica
need these
economica
efforts
dell'Europa.
to become the new economic policy in Europe.
Dobbiamo portare la nostra ambizione
So our level of ambition
a segnare con questo tempo e
must
con
be
le risposte che tutti e 27 i paesi,
given responses
con le nostre istituzioni
all
hanno
together,
dato,
institutions, 27 member states,
a favorire strumenti permanenti
to acquire permanent instruments
di solidarietà.
based on solidarity.
Ecco perché questo forum
That's why this forum,
è un'eccellente
it is an
opportunità
excellent opportunity
per discutere delle ambizioni
to
future,
debate about the future
degli
ambition,
obiettivi comuni
the future common
e lo
objectives,
scopo che vogliamo
the aims
per la
we
nostra
pursue
Unione
for
Europea,
our European Union.
perché vogliamo che
Because
affrontare le
we
sfide che
want to
abbiamo
tackle
insieme,
the fresh, the new challenges all together,
come abbiamo fatto in questo
as
anno e
we did
mezzo
in this year and a half,
in cui le economie
when
non solo europee ma
not
del
only the
mondo
European but the world
si
economies
sono fermate.
stopped.
Sono convinto che dobbiamo
I'm convinced
rafforzare la
that we must
nostra coesione
strengthen our cohesion.
e sono convinto
And I'm also
anche che
convinced
l'Europa debba continuare
Europe
a riaffermare nel mondo
must
i propri valori
re-establish and reconfirm
che fanno
its
parte
own
della nostra
values
identità.
that are part of our identity.
per essere credibili agli occhi dei
In order to
nostri
be
cittadini
credible
e
in
agli
the eyes of our
occhi del
citizens,
mondo,
in the eyes of the rest of the world,
dobbiamo guardare a noi stessi
we must look at ourselves
e
in our
affermare
backyard
che gli ideali europei
and maintain,
sono ancora molto utili,
saying that
non solo
the
all'Europa,
European ideals are very useful, still very useful, not only for Europe, but for the rest of the world
e uno di
too.
questi valori
And one of
naturalmente
these
è la
values, of
solidarietà,
course, is solidarity.
obiettivo sancito dai
This is
nostri
an
trattati.
objective laid down in our treaties.
Solidarietà,
Solidarity
quando prendiamo prestiti comuni,
of collective debt.
solidarietà di fronte alle
Solidarity
minacce, alle nostre frontiere,
when there are threats on our boards.
solidarietà di
Solidarity
fronte alle nostre responsabilità
when we're faced with our
negli obblighi di
responsibilities
protezione
and
dei
our
richiedenti
obligation
asilo,
to protect asylum seekers.
solidarietà
Solidarity
nella gestione comune
in
dei flussi
managing
migratori.
the migratory flows together.
Siamo rimasti molto delusi
We're very disappointed indeed
dalle conclusioni
with the
del Consiglio
conclusions
Affari Interni
of
che si è
the
svolto ieri.
Internal Affairs Council yesterday.
Abbiamo visto paesi fuori
We saw
dall'Europa
countries outside the European Union
farsi avanti
that stepped in
per offrire accoglienza,
and welcome humanity and
ai
welcome
richiedenti asilo afghani.
Afghan seekers, Afghan asylum seekers.
Non abbiamo visto paesi europei fare
Unfortunately, we didn't
altrettanto.
see so many other European countries to do likewise.
Tutti hanno giustamente pensato
Everyone
ai propri
rightly thought
collaboratori,
about the people they worked
ma
with,
nessuno ha avuto il
but
coraggio
nobody
di
had
offrire
the courage
rifugio
to offer
coloro
refuge, to
che sono
welcome
ancora oggi
those
in
that
pericolo di
still
vita.
today their lives is at risk.
Non possiamo fare finta che la
We cannot
questione afghana
pretend
non ci riguardi,
that Afghanistan is not our
perché
business.
abbiamo partecipato a quella
Because we
missione
participated in that mission.
condividendone obiettivi
They
e
shared
finalità.
its objectives, the whole activity.
Abbiamo bisogno di una
What
voce
we need
europea
is a
forte e
strong
comune
and common European voice
sulla scena internazionale.
on the international scene.
E l'Europa deve prendere e assumersi le proprie
Must
responsabilità,
take up its own responsibility,
far sentire la propria voce,
must have a voice which can be heard,
definire i propri
must
interessi
set its own and protect its own interests.
anche nel quadro dell'alleanza
Also in the framework
transatlantica
of the transatlantic alliance,
per poter svolgere un'azione
in
di
order to carry
stabilizzazione,
out a stabilizing action for peace,
di sviluppo,
for development,
insieme ai nostri partner
together
in un quadro
with our partners
multilaterale.
in a multilateral framework.
Cari amici, questo va
Dear
di
friends,
pari passo con la
this
necessità
goes
di
in hand
avanzare
in hand
insieme
with the need to proceed, to go
verso
forward
una politica
together
di
towards
sicurezza, di
a policy
difesa,
of security and defense,
senza la quale rimarremo dipendenti
without which we would
dalla buona
depend
volontà delle
on the
grandi
goodwill
potenze
of the great powers,
e ci esporremo alle minacce
and
dei
that would
regimi
expose
autoritari.
us to threats of the authoritarian regimes.
Nei giorni scorsi ho
The
visitato
last
i
few
paesi
days I went
del Baltico
to the Baltic states.
che sono minacciati da
They are
guerriglia
threatened
ibrida
by what is called
e
a
da una forte
hybrid threat.
attività di fake news, di
Fake
ingerenza informatica.
Digital interference.
Noi siamo vicini ai nostri paesi, dobbiamo
We stand
proteggere
close to our
i nostri
countries. We must
confini,
protect our borders.
ma per fare questo
But
abbiamo bisogno
to do so,
di sviluppare una politica
we need to
di difesa
establish
comune
a common defense policy
che dal 1953 aspetta una risposta.
which has had no answer since 1953.
Ma se non lo facciamo
But
oggi,
if we don't do that now,
quando lo faremo?
when?
Una vera Europa
A
geopolitica
genuine geopolitical
dovrebbe iniziare alle
Europe
nostre frontiere,
should be started on our borders,
con i nostri partner,
with our partners,
con i nostri amici più
with our
vicini.
closer friends.
Penso in particolare
And here I'm thinking particularly
ai
of
Balcani occidentali,
the Western Balkans,
da Tirana a Belgrado,
from Tirana to
da Skopje
Belgrade,
a
from Skopje
Sarajevo,
to Sarajevo,
da Pristina a
from Pristina
Podgorica.
to Podgorica.
I paesi dei Balcani
The Western
occidentali
Balkan countries
fanno parte della
are
nostra
part
storia
of our history.
e condividiamo
And
insieme a loro
we
una
share
identità
with them
comune.
a common identity.
Per questo
That's
dobbiamo
why
essere pronti a
we must be
impegnarci
ready to commit ourselves
nel processo di adesione,
in the accession process.
perché sia rivisto, perché
Because we must
non
review
faccia
this
aspettare
process.
decenni
We can't keep
ad
countries
opinioni pubbliche
and
che
public
vogliono
opinions
entrare
waiting
nella nostra
for
famiglia
decades.
europea.
They want to join our European family.
Qualsiasi ritardo rischia di fare
Any
il
delay
gioco di altri,
can play into the hands of other players
anche il gioco dei nostri avversari.
and also our adversaries.
Avere un continente stabile,
So a stable continent,
pacifico,
a peaceful one, a
democratico,
democratic continent
porterebbe immensi benefici
might bring immense
a tutti i
benefits
cittadini
to
europei.
all the European citizens.
E la storia della Slovenia lo
And the history of
dimostra
Slovenia shows that.
nel successo che ha avuto.
Because of the success
È
that
giunto
we
il
reached.
momento di iniettare
It
nuova
is now the
energia nel
time to inject
processo di
new
allargamento.
energy in the enlargement process.
Sono convinto che la
I'm
presidenza
convinced that the
slovena sarà
Slovenian
una voce
presidency
importante
will contribute, will
nel portare
play an
avanti la
important
questione
role
nei
to
prossimi
bring forward
mesi.
this issue in the next few months.
Cari amici, spero che
Dear friends,
questo
I
forum
hope that this
strategico
forum,
di
the
Bled,
strategic forum in Bled,
darà un contributo
will
sostanziale
give
alla nostra
a
riflessione
substantial contribution to our debate, to our reflection,
in un momento difficile
at a difficult time
della nostra storia,
of our history.
ma anche un momento di grandi opportunità.
But it is also a time of great opportunities.
Alla fine di questa
At the
giornata
end
e di questa
of today,
conferenza
of this conference,
spero che tradurremo le
I
nostre
do
idee
hope that we will
le nostre ambizioni
match our ambitions, our
in azioni e
ideas
riforme,
with reforms and
perché questo è
actions.
l'unico
Because
terreno
that
su cui noi
is
saremo
exactly
giudicati
where we will be judged
dai nostri
by
cittadini
our citizens
e domani anche
and
dalla
tomorrow
storia.
also
Grazie.
by history. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, for your remarks. I'm inviting all the excellencies to join me on stage. Please. Thank you very much. To kick off this debate,
I'm going to give a brief introduction. If we want to tell a story of Europe, we have to bring an understanding of critical times in current developments within the European Union and discuss their long-standing consequences first. Despite the EU has been recognized as the greatest peace project in history, a current political narrative that focuses on so-called design flaws of the European model often prevails. How did we come from the model of unity in diversity, basically functioning subsidiarity, to the question of survival, to stand and withstand? Does the pessimistic narrative signal the EU has outgrown itself, or is there a common consensus among the member states on areas of cooperation? Moreover, are those areas of cooperation purely based on pragmatic trade interests, or should we build upon values, principles and traditions? Leaders will be invited to share their view on Europe's biggest challenges, priorities, and brainstorm the kind of future they want for the EU. Before we start, we have to set some ground rules. I strive to get a critical conversation that allows participation by all members. Please limit your answers to 2 minutes. You will see the time on the monitor. I'm going to allow short replies by other guests as well. I will imply 2-finger rule, so please wave me and I will give you the word, but please be brief. We are really short on time, and if we want to get the most out of the debate, let's be brief. Regarding audience questions, I have a tablet on me where the audience could ask questions over social media. Use hashtag BSF 2021. I will select those accordingly when needed. So, to launch the debate, to set a frame, let's start with the question, what is the purpose of politics? This is a quick fire round, no more than 30 seconds, and I will start with the lady in the room, Ms. Šuica. Please.
Thank you for this question. First of all, I want to thank you for inviting me to this forum, and I feel privileged to sit in such honorable company, being the only woman this morning here. As you know, I'm member of first ever gender-balanced European Commission, and I really feel privileged to talk to you. Regarding to your question, what is the politics to me, I may answer, politics means trust and connection. Trust and connection to our citizens, but not for a day, not for tomorrow, not for campaign, but lifelong connection and lifelong trust. So we have to believe in our citizens, we have to believe in our voters, and this is the reason why we are organizing this conference on the future of Europe, because we want to listen to our citizens, because the period of 4 years or 5 years of our mandates is, there is a gap, and citizens want to interact in the meantime. So we want to give them a say, we don't want to leave anyone behind. And as we heard this morning in different speeches, democracy is not static. It evolves constantly, and we have to listen to our citizens and to take their replies and their ideas into consideration when drafting European policy. So we want that citizens feel that they can influence drafting European policies. This is the idea.
Thank you very much. Mr. Heger.
Thank you very much also for the invitation. And very briefly, I think in a democratic society, in a democratic countries, politics is about serving the people and bringing solutions to make their life better, to provide quality services, and that involves a lot of activities, starting with networking, working with the people, with the experts, etc. But in general, I think it's about serving.
Thank you. Mr. Orban. What is politics to you?
Speaking not on philosophical level, but practically as a leader, may I say that politics in the Hungarian understanding is a job for the leaders to help the people, our nation, to prepare for the future.
Thank you.
So therefore it means that we have to understand what this future will look like. Second, what kind of instruments we have had, what kind of instruments we don't have, and how we can get it. So to help to prepare your nation for the future.
Thank you. Mr. Babiš.
So the politician has to serve the people, the country, and he shouldn't enter to politics selfishly to achieve a better life for himself. This is very important. And the role of the good politician must be driven by endless desire to create a better life for all citizens of the country, combined with the human quality of understanding of people, of their life, of their needs. And a good politician should be also the manager who can manage the crisis, COVID crisis, Afghanistan crisis, tornado, we had tornado, and so on. So this is important that in politics we need people which achieve in their life already something concrete, not speeches, endless speeches with no action at the end.
Monsieur Michel.
The question, in my opinion, should be, how can we take very clear and strong decisions in order to build a better future? And indeed, it means that we need to protect the fundamental values, but at the same time, to guarantee that we can make also more collective progress. And this balance between the rights of each citizen and the common interest of the society should be the framework in order to take decisions and to improve the societies.
Thank you. Mr. Janša.
Well, already has been said, so...
I'm pretty sure you have an opinion of yourself as well.
I think that the main purpose of politics is to coordinate different interests. People are different, and we all want to live in freedom, and but for the society to develop, it is necessary to coordinate different interests. And the main purpose of politics is to do it. For the politician, I think the main purpose in politics is to speak truth and to deliver what he or she promised.
Thank you. Mr. Sassoli.
Noi abbiamo ereditato una grande storia.
Inherited a great history.
Una storia fatta di grandi sofferenze.
Made up of major suffering too.
Perché la democrazia non è scesa dal cielo.
Didn't fall down from the sky.
E noi abbiamo il dovere di custodire
we have the duty to protect
questo processo di pace, di democrazia e di
process of peace, democracy and freedom.
Naturalmente
and of course,
abbiamo anche la necessità
we also need to
di rendere il nostro sistema democratico più efficiente.
Our democratic system more efficient.
Perché sappia rispondere
Because
con
this
più
system
efficacia
must have more quicker and prompter responses
ai problemi delle nostre opinioni
to the
pubbliche.
problems of our societies.
Quindi abbiamo una grande responsabilità sulle nostre spalle.
On our shoulders we bear a heavy responsibility.
Perché questa storia di 70 anni di pace,
70-year
di cooperazione
of peace,
e di libertà
and freedom
non possiamo permetterci di tradirla.
Does not allow us to betray it.
Thank you. Mr. Plenković.
First of all, thank you very much for the invitation, Janez, and all the Slovenian hosts and friends for organizing another Bled Strategic Forum. Politics for me is, first of all, engagement, it's responsibility, it is the values and the convictions that we share, that we bring in before the public and before our citizens. Then it's the program and its delivery. I will just emphasize that this job today given that we live in the globalized world and in the age of internet, has altered substantially. It is also a matter of endurance, it's a matter of reaction, and it's a matter of trying to advocate what is fact and what is fake. This is what we are very much faced with and often today. And I think this will be the biggest challenge for democracy. And then when it comes to Europe, I think we should all be winning our European battles at home. If we do that, then Europe will do fine.
Thank you. Mr. Mitsotakis.
Politics for me is being both a manager and a leader at the same time. We're constant problem solvers, and we need to address crises, small and big ones. At the end of the day, we need to deliver results. That's what citizens expect from us. Being a leader means, first of all, speaking the truth and occasionally taking unpopular decisions. We are in this job because we have to take decisions that many others would not want to take because they fear that they would suffer politically if they do so. So being able to distinguish between what is important and what is less important, looking at the short-term future, but also balancing long-term strategic requirements, that is the job of a politician today.
Thank you very much for inviting me at this forum, at this panel as well. And, well, politics means vision. Politics means ideas and fulfillment of someone's proclaimed aims. And I also believe that politics is not flattering the people, it's not about flattering the people and following the polls. It's about bringing up courageous decisions and decisions that most of the people would never bring up. And I also think that our job is, of course, to serving the people, to serving the nation, the countries, and well, people are here to assess it, to estimate it properly. That's it. I'm not a Leibniz and Schopenhauer to do it in a more philosophical way.
I am not a politician, but I would like, first of all, to thank the Slovenian authorities for this invitation. I am very glad that the whole EC is here. He can add his voice on the future of Europe. What is politics? I would like to say what somebody has already said. Politics for us, for the Christian vision, is a service. Is a service. And I would like to add a phrase of Pope Paul VI, St. Paul VI, saying that politics is the highest form of service to persons and to communities, to societies. Is the highest form of service because is looking for, is implementing what we call the common good, the good of each person, taking into account each person, and the good of all persons of the community. Then it is really a big challenge for everybody.
Thank you very much for fire on. Why I put that question forward? It was to showcase that basically you're not all so different. You're all exposed, you all put forward hard matters, hard politics, serving the other people and leaving your egos aside. And so somehow it is a bit unusual why that doesn't really function nowadays within the European process. What are the problems? Because we get this feeling that ego is first and foremost the biggest elephant in the room. But now you all describe that it should be hard decisions, making good for the people. So there is a bit of a discrepancy here. And that's why I wanted to showcase that actually European Union could work together, but the question is how. To address the other elephant in the room, the Mr. Sassoli's speech stirred some voices in the public, especially in the first row. Would anyone like to comment on his speech, what he said? Mr. Mitsotakis.
I took note of what David said, and I share his ambitious agenda regarding the reform of European institutions, but I would politely disagree with his assessment regarding the decision taken yesterday by the European Council at the level of the ministers regarding Afghanistan. What we said was very clear, that we do not want a repeat of the uncontrolled and unregulated massive migration flows that we experienced in 2015. And I stand by that decision as a country that was a victim of a policy which ended up highlighting significant failures of European institutions, because we have not yet been able to agree on a common migration and refugee pact. But we have agreed that we need to protect our borders. We need to do it in a disciplined and principled manner with full respect to international law. But we should also acknowledge, as Europe and as European institutions, that we need to learn from our mistakes. And I think what happened in 2015 was a mistake. We acknowledge it openly. We address the need to support refugees closer to the source of the problem, which is Afghanistan, and we're sending a very, very clear signal to smugglers and those who exploit human pain and desperation, that they cannot repeat what they have been doing systematically for the past years. So allow me, David, to disagree with this aspect of your speech.
Would you like a reply?
Ma io apprezzo molto il lavoro
I definitely appreciate
delle autorità della Grecia.
The work of Greek authorities.
Sono stato anche al confine.
I was there. I was on the border. We were with the Prime Minister together.
We were together. I need to remind that we were together at the Greek border in March 2020.
Esatto,
yeah, we were together. Exactly. We were together on the border because we wanted to show that the European space and the European borders of Greece
difesi
must
e
be
sono
defended,
un
must
bene
be protected,
comune
and
dell'Europa.
are a common good of Europe.
E per dire anche un'altra cosa,
And let me tell you something else.
che nessun paese può essere lasciato da solo rispetto
can be left behind on
alla
its
propria
own
posizione geografica
because of its specific geographical position.
In relazione alle sfide dell'immigrazione.
When this country is faced with challenges such as migration.
Non deve essere lasciata da sola la Grecia.
Greece must not be left alone.
Tutti i paesi del Mediterraneo.
Neither the other Mediterranean countries
I paesi
must be left
della nostra
behind.
frontiera orientale e baltica.
The eastern border and Baltic states neither.
Ed è per questo
That's why.
che abbiamo bisogno di una
That's
politica
why we need
dell'immigrazione e dell'asilo
a migration
europea.
and asylum policy at European level.
Però c'è un problema.
But there's a problem here.
Che mentre il Parlamento europeo
While
chiede
the European Parliament
che si superi il meccanismo di Dublino
is asking to go beyond the
e
Dublin
che
mechanism.
chi arriva in Grecia
Therefore, people that reach
arriva in
Greece
Europa,
basically reach Europe.
e gli Stati membri,
The member
i
states,
governi,
the governments,
non dotano le istituzioni europee di
don't
potere per
equip
poterlo
the
fare.
European Union with powers to do so, to act.
E allora qui c'è una domanda.
And so this begs the question,
Come pensano gli Stati
how can the
nazionali
national states,
se non dotano l'Unione Europea di nuove competenze
if the European Union has no more power,
di affrontare da
how can
soli
they believe they can face
i problemi dell'immigrazione
the
e
challenge of
dell'asilo?
migration and asylum on their own?
Questa è una domanda
So that's the
a
question.
cui tutti gli Stati membri dovrebbero
A
rispondere
question
con
that
verità.
all the member states should reply in truth.
Okay, thank you very much. This has been a great setting for another question, which I will pose to Mr. Michel. You hold the position of the President of the European Council. What is your guidance when defining this very same agenda that was described earlier? What do you believe should be on the future European agenda?
Maybe one word about this exchange of views between our friends Kyriakos and David, because it's very interesting. It shows the institutional reality of this European project with a double legitimacy. On the one hand, you have the legitimacy of the European Parliament with members directly elected in the different member states. On the other hand, you have the national governments, the head of states, the head of governments, and they are responsible day after day with the national parliament, with the domestic press, following what we are deciding at the European level. Point one. Point two, in the next weeks, the next months, we have a very clear agenda. First of all, I'm convinced that we need to work in order to strengthen our strategic autonomy. And it's very concrete. It's not something that would be theoretical. First, we need to strengthen the single market. We need to work in order to build, I hope, a stronger banking union. It will be on the agenda in December, and we are preparing those topics, the economic ambition, point one. Point two, I think in the same time that digital and climate change are huge opportunities. And this is really interesting because in a few years, we made a lot of progress. I remember a few years ago, only 6 or 7 member states were convinced that it would be necessary by 2050 to make Europe climate neutral. And only in 5 months, we were able to get a consensus on this very strong goal, this very strong ambition. And so I am optimistic, in fact, because even if I do not underestimate the difficulties, the different opinions, I think that on the big orientation for the future, we agree we need more prosperity. Climate change, digital revolution are very strong tools, point one. We need more security. How is it possible to act more together in order to prevent, in order to be more influential in the world? And of course, the values. I suppose we will come back on those topics because sometimes this is a controversial topic, not on the principles, but on we think we need to implement, and on the way we think we need to decide how we make Europe a democratic, strong and democratic society.
These are all very big words, but we have challenges that lie right in front on our background. Europe was promoted as a soft power. We've seen that Pax Americana is definitely ending. Especially with what's been going on in Afghanistan. Is this soft power narrative still enough? Is this still the answer to the globalized world and globalized challenges? Mr. Janša, how do you perceive that problem? You were the one who actually made the migration debate not so long ago.
Yeah, both elements are linked, of course. To the last one, my answer is yes. Is no. So soft power is not enough. We also need hard power. It's obvious. So huge efforts made by the made by the European Union and European Union nations to help poor countries, to help refugees in the camps in the third countries and so on. Not always, but very often this help is not viable, it's not coming to the people if we are not able to make a secure environment. So, and for this you need, soft power is not enough, you need also hard power. And it's obvious that, especially after what has happened in Afghanistan, United deliver. Otherwise we are just spending money and arguing among ourselves. And speaking about the first question you raised, this post-Afghanistan situation and possibility of next migratory wave coming, I think that Council of the European Union yesterday took the decision, and this is final. And this is no one single member state among us which is prepared to repeat the situation from 2015. There is no one single member state which is prepared to repeat the open border situation from 2015 after Syria crisis.
Okay, so not to lose ourselves in the whole debate of migration, it is definitely going to influence the world nowadays. I'm going to Ms. Šuica. Migrations are inaccessibly, let's say, connected to demographics. In Europe, we face a poor demography. You're vice commissioner for demography. And I will just say vice president for demography. I will just ask a brief question. Can we have more Europe without Europeans?
Thank you for pointing out this question on demography. This is first ever commission to have portfolio on democracy and demography. Many ask me what is the link between democracy and demography, but since we know that there are many people in rural areas and in distant areas who feel left behind, and then they start blaming democracy, not taking part into elections, not taking part in democratic institutions, and then they start blaming democracy for this demographic change. So demographic change is very important and it is evident. And if I tell you only one fact, which is if we continue like this in 2070, Europe will be only 4% of the world population. So how are we going to be world leader in economics? How are we going to lead in climate change and in all other priorities if we are only 4% of world population? Of course, migration can be one of the solutions, but we have to it's not migrations like it was in 2015, which was mentioned here. So this was really a fault at that time. Nowadays, we have to manage migrations if we want to do something with this. But we have also to think about our artificial intelligence, about robotics. At the same time, it is very sensitive to mention rates, natality rates, mortality rates, but it's a member states' competence, I know. But at the same time, we have to create an environment for people to live in rural areas. I don't know if you know, 80% of European territory is covered by rural areas, and only a third of European population live there. So this is vast potential, and at this moment we are creating environment for people to live there. Even now, during this COVID-19 pandemic, these rural areas were more attractive to live than big metropolitan areas. So we have to attract people to live there, but above all is broadband internet. If you don't have broadband internet there, you cannot create jobs. Today, there is not question where do you live, but how well you are connected. And this is very important nowadays. So demographic is very vast sector, so I cannot now...
but everything is connected to, that, like okay. from the concept of solidarity, going forward to enlargement. And speaking about enlargement, I have a question for Mr. Orban. Actually, how are we going to define acquisition criteria for new member states, accession criteria for new member states? Are those going to be rule-based or value-based?
May I have a remark on migration also?
Sure, of course.
Because probably some of you remember that I was the first one who definitely fought against the concept of the Speaker of the European Parliament from 15. At the very first moment to say that that policy and that approach can destroy the cultural identity of Europe, will deliver a lot of unsecured groups of people to Europe. That could be resulted in terrorism and many social difficulties, and we don't have answer and we are not prepared how to treat that kind of new challenges. So I represent that position from the very beginning. And now, as Afghanistan happened, I think this is the reality again. And as a consequence of the dispute on migration issue inside the European Union created many diversities and difficulties and differences. And I think now we are not able to overbridge. that kind of gap among the opinions. So the only way, if you would not like to create a situation when dispute on migration destroy the unity of European Union, the only way is to give all the rights back to the nation state in relation to migration. That's the only way. Otherwise, we will suffer a lot. So that's about migration. And on demography and migration, may I say that what we need is not newcomers instead of our own people originally living here, because it's just a mathematical approach. If we invite others from outside Europe, that will change the cultural identity of Europe. There are some countries who accept it. Hungary is not among that countries. We would not like to change the cultural identity of our countries, so we don't accept migration as a solution to the demographic politics or demographic challenges. We only believe that the family policy, the traditional Christian family policy, can help us out of that demographic crisis. On your question, what was that? Sorry.
So no, I think you've answered for quite enough. I just wanted to say how to avoid disruptive political approaches when accessing new countries or when adding new countries to the European Union.
So may I have one remark on that?
But really short, please.
So I try to be very cautious because the president of Serbia is here, and the key country is Serbia. So without accepting Serbia as new member of European Union, there is no reason that it's nonsense to speak about any kind of security and any kind of whole European identity. So Serbia is the key country. And the truth is that we Europeans, European Union countries, need more Serbia membership than Serbia needs the European membership. So this is a strategic issue. So the approach should be geopolitical. So we need Serbia because of geopolitics. Otherwise, we will suffer on the security side of our life.
Thank you very much. Very brief reply by Ms. Šuica, and then we go to Mr. Vučić to trying to identify why Serbia is important, as Mr. Orban mentioned.
Only short replica to Prime Minister Orban. I haven't said that migration is a solution, but that migration can be one of the solutions. If you think about headhunting, also you in Hungary sometimes look for some experts in the world. So managing migrations can be one of the solutions, but not the only. This is the reason why I mentioned rural areas and huge European potential and creating environment for our Europeans to live there.
Okay. I will go to Mr. Vučić first and then to Mr. Babiš. What is the Serbian perspective? How do you see that from abroad, from the outside borders?
Well, I'm the only one at this panel, apart from Mr. Parolin, that represents the country that does not belong to European Union, and of course you know that I can, of course, sorry that I didn't do it from the very beginning. As I said, I'm the only one that is representing the country that is not belonging to European Union apart from Mr. Parolin here, and I have no right to share some critical words about EU future, and I'm going to speak about Serbia's approach towards EU and what we think and what we feel today. And if I may say, and it was announced for this panel as well, that we could have and we should have discussed strategic issues for the future of EU, and as we could see so far, it was mainly about migration processes, about current crisis European Union is facing with. I would just put three things in front of you that I believe that might be very important in the near future for all of us, and then I'll go back to Serbia and its accession process. Number one is, and no one is speaking about it, of course European Union is the best place in the world for people, for speaking about living standards and democracy, human rights, rule of law and everything else. The best place in the world, no doubt. But there is nothing that is offered for the future of Europeans regarding the growth rate, what all of us will do, not only European Union member states, but all European countries. Because just 20 years ago, the participation of European Union in an overall world GDP was 20%. Today it's 10%. And in just several years, it's going to be 7%. It's getting worse and worse, lower and lower chunk of overall world's GDP. And how are we going to heal it? What are we going to change? Speaking every single day about the sexist topic, which is green agenda, which will, help us overcoming all the problems, and that's going to be a new source of growth. Is it going to be enough? I don't believe so. Do we have any other solutions apart from safeguarding measures against China and against someone else in the world whenever we are jeopardized with someone's abilities and capabilities? I haven't heard so far. And I still don't see any solutions. Number two, there is something important which is more personal, but it's a political fact. Angela Merkel is leaving German politics, and we won't have that strong German chancellor. Doesn't matter whether it's going to be Scholz or Laschet or Warbeck. That's a fact. And then my practical question, when it happens something somewhere in Europe, let's say in the countries of Western Balkans, who's going to do that phone call saying or asking for something or ordering something? Who's going to do it? To be listened by all of us. I don't see it today. Number three, more importantly, everybody is speaking about polls, about rule of law, green agenda, and when we come to the Western Balkans, yes, you belong culturally to us, and one day you'll be a part of European Union. And I'll tell you something in a very frank way, and I hope that Charles and David and all my friends and colleagues here will not be embarrassed because of my words. You see, today we are all, not only Serbia, we would say 5 or 5+1, or some would say 6, doesn't matter. We were very enthusiastic about our EU accession process. Today, that enthusiasm does not exist anymore. We started finding our own ways to overcome all economic difficulties, and we are very proud to say that Serbia was number 2, speaking about growth rate in entire Europe last year, number 4 year before that, and we'll do our best to be among top 5 this year as well. And that's why we created our own mechanisms, our own tools to overcome all the difficulties, including that great initiative which is Open Balkans. We want to have an access to each other without borders in the future, although there are some people that don't like to see it because the steering wheel is not in their hands. But to tell you the truth, we don't care about it anymore. And what we want to see is what is going to be the real future for all of us. If you see an example of North Macedonia, they changed the name of the country, and they were promised by everybody they would have opened negotiating process. Did they get it? No, they didn't. Now it's Bulgaria. Tomorrow there would be someone else. Speaking about Serbia, and tomorrow it would be for Albania, the explanation why they don't do it for Albania, it would be, well, we are not going to decouple Albania from North Macedonia because it can harm all the processes in Skopje. And then when we come to Serbia, although they'll have to admit that we made a progress on rule of law agenda and rule of law issues, they will say, yeah, it's better, but still it's not better, and then someone else, doesn't matter whether Romanians or someone else, will have some remarks on us. And that's why I'm saying this. I'm not even asking for help. I'm not even crying for help. No, I'm just saying what is true, and we see it. And that's why we will do our best to getting closer to each other, keeping stability and peace in the region, which is not always absolutely easy, and seeing what we can do. And I believe also that after Brexit, I also believe that Europe needed to enlarge itself, but instead of that, Europe started introspectively scrutinizing everything that was happening within European Union and not seeing a wider picture. That's my opinion, and of course, just not to be wrongly understood, Serbia is fully committed and we remain on our EU path, but we have to, not only to survive, we have to improve living conditions for our people, we'll have to work hard, and we'll take care of ourselves, together with our neighbors in the Balkans, unselfishly. Sorry that I took a lot of your time.
Those are definitely the right questions for the continuing of our debate, but we still, the whole debate was, let's say, foreseen as being one part of the debate as being a problem identification process, and then the second part where you share your visions for the future of Europe and what are the answers to all those questions.
Can I say one word?
Yeah.
I spoke to Charles Michel 4 months ago, and at that time the alignment of with European declarations on foreign policy was 46%. And I discussed that issue with him because it was about Kosovo leverage and everything else. Yeah. And I said to him, within few months, we'll go up to 60%. Now we are at 62%. Today it's going to be 63%. That Serbia aligned with EU declarations on foreign policy. Okay. Do you really believe that someone will notice it?
To Mr. Michel. Mr. Michel, please be brief, then Mr. Babiš, and then Mr. Parolin.
I will be
because
brief.
You were directly
but one or two points. First, this is not a secret that I'm personally totally engaged because I'm convinced that we need to strengthen the ties with the strengthened Balkans as soon as possible. Point one. That's why we decided together to have a summit in 1 month in Slovenia with Janez, with all the friends, in order to have a free exchange of views and to decisions for the future. Point two. Point three, what you mentioned, Alexander, this is a very good example. It means that our dialogue, our exchange of views, this is useful because indeed we exchange opinions. On the other hand, you told me that you need more European investments, more European engagements, and we decided at the European level to mobilize an unprecedented amount of money in order to try to be more tangible, to be more concrete, to be more visible for your people and for your population, and you can count on me personally in order to remain very engaged and in order to try to deliver.
Which is very true. Which is very true.
Mr. Babiš? And then I would ask, after Mr. Parolin, Janez Janša to make a brief comment how he sees that situation from the position of the presidency.
First of all, we have to declare clearly we are speaking about illegal migration, illegal, organized by smugglers. These smugglers which made €6 billion money in 2016. These people are coming to Europe for better life. The smugglers are promising better life. And in 2015, a lot of countries welcomed the illegal migrants. By the way, our friend Sebastian Kurz, which won last elections with anti-migration policy. And since the beginning of the stupid idea of quotas of Jean-Claude Juncker, we were fighting against. And Victor and me on 26 June, 4 o'clock in the morning, definitely, at European Council, we said, we are blocking this redistribution of illegal migrants. And we have to stop this illegal migration outside of Europe. And this illegal migration was connected with several terrorist attacks. We forgot probably. So this is definitely not acceptable. And it is about safety. Afghanistan, it's a catastrophe. It's a shame. It's really unbelievable what's happening in Afghanistan. And we NATO members, we have to speak about this, about safety. And this is, you are speaking about enlargement of EU. Why we don't speak about Schengen? I'm always saying loudly why Bulgaria and Romania and Croatia are waiting to enter Schengen area. Why? Our friend Zoran Zaev is sitting here. We have 60 Czech policemen in North Macedonia defending the Schengen border, which is in reality in 2015 and 16 was not really functioning. The only Schengen border which was functioning in 2015 was Viktor Orban border. Only Hungarian border. So this is the reality, and where is the strategy? We never speak about the enlargement of Schengen, which is much easier than EU, and Zoran Zaev made everything. And EU didn't deliver. We didn't deliver the promises. So we have to define clearly. First about Schengen. Let's say clearly if we are going to take West Balkans in Schengen, including Serbia, our friend President Vučić, or not. Where we are going to defend our border, and I'm always saying about Asterix and Obelix village, on the sea, on the sea. And how we are going to stop the migration? Very simply, like before, with negotiation with President Erdogan. He got 6 billion euro, now he will get I don't know how much. And we organized a lot of conferences. I was sitting in Palermo about Libya conferences. I went to Frontex. And we are speaking, and there is no strategy, no clear strategy about the territory, Schengen first, which should be much easier than enlargement of EU.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Parolin.
Thank you. I think that we are well aware of the difficult issue of migration. Is a multifaceted problems, and many of our panelists have stressed several points, several difficult points of migration. I think that the Pope Francis has given a lot of insight and suggestions on this matter, and all the politicians are attentive also to his voice. Starting to match the principle with the reality. And this is not an easy task. But I think that we share the view that migration is a common problem. Some of the panelists have already touched this point, and should be tackled together. No nation, no state, not government should be let alone to face this problem, but it has to be a common policy of the European Union. And in this sense, I think that the Pact of Migrant and Asylum, which is now on the way, I think is a right attempt in this direction. But it's important also the basic attitude, according to us, according to policy, should not be a negative approach to the problem of migration. That is the problem, but more a positive one, not only in the materialistic and pragmatic sense, but also taking into account the values. We have spoken a lot about values. I think that welcoming others, living in concrete fraternity, which is one of the concepts, the main concept deal with Pope Francis in his last encyclical, is the way, the attitude, the basic attitude, how to approach the theme of migration. And then to welcome, according to the forward to welcome, to promote, and to integrate them. I think that is important. I would like to stress this point, the attitude, which should be the attitude of everybody. And the second, only a second point about demography. I think that the European Union should make a very, very strong policy in favor of families. I think that is one concrete point which can be taken into account as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Plenković, is there too much negative attitude?
You mean in our debate or in the context we live in?
Both.
I think this debate actually gives exactly the right light on how the European Union is feeling today, so to say. There are, within the Union, various types of unions happening right now as we speak. There are some of us who would like to be tough on Turkey, or some of us who would like to find a solution when it comes to migration with Turkey. There are some of us who would like to open new avenues with Russia because of the economic and global strategic reasons. Others would like to be very strict because of Crimea, Donetsk, Luhansk, and other frozen conflicts. There are some of us who would like to forge a partnership with the United States in state building around the world and making the global role of security. Whilst we saw the failure of the state building exercise after 20 years and so many trillions spent in Afghanistan, which was probably prone to fail due to the tribal differences and lack of cohesion within the people of Afghanistan. There are some of us who are very keen on enlargement. All of the countries in Southeast Europe. I was personally advocating this for forever since I acted in politics. And there are other countries who are not. There are countries in the EU who get an allergy if you mentioned anything that starts with the letter E, whatever enlargement it is. So what's going to be the future? When Dubravka became, for the first time ever, Vice President of the Commission for Democracy and Demography, what we had in mind when we were discussing this with Ursula von der Leyen was addressing the key issue of the future of Europe. And that's basically what you asked. The Europeans, or the Croats, or the Slovenians. Half of the member states have a negative natural growth in terms of population. This is the essential issue for all of us. Look at all the countries who joined. You have either a transfer of population or a demographic deficit. Some of the countries are investing a lot of money to address the issue. But this is, in my view, essential. I think when it comes to the future of Europe, being a country that was the 28th member state 8 years ago, now it's the 27th, I think we are all neglecting the strategic loss with the departure of the United Kingdom. I think years will have to pass until we realize how much we lost, both in terms of strategic strength, hard power, nuclear power, Security Council and United Nations, and the entire impact on the Commonwealth world. But at the same time, the pieces are there. It's going to be the future of the, as Charles said, the twin transformation. Everything is going to be about green and digital. If we didn't have COVID, all of our debates would be only about climate change, and exclusively about the implementation of the fourth industrial revolution. And I think this is the essence of the debate once we calm the crisis. Because I agree with you, Andrej, you said Schengen. I would like to be in Schengen today. We'll fulfill the criteria. At the same time, Schengen today is not the Schengen that we basically applied to become a member. It's a Schengen area which has been, I would say, massacred by the fears of terrorism and the migratory crisis. One of the major liberties in the European Union is actually not the one that we used to have it. So on the migration, I'll be very realistic. There is no consensus. That's why the Dublin hasn't revived itself. And I think you heard the echo of the debate in the late hours of the Council. And we need to come closer, and it's not going to be easy. It's going to be very difficult for Charles to manage this debate.
I want to give a positive outcome of this debate, because we heard quite a lot of negativity. Mr. Heger had a reply, and then after him, we will turn the debate around, and I would like to hear from you, what is your vision of Europe in one sentence? So be prepared. We'll jump on that.
Thank you very much. Well, you asked at the beginning that all of us want to serve, and somehow it's difficult to find an agreement. Now you see why. But I think the situation is that everybody, we are continent, Europe of continent, as a continent has different problems. And out of these different problems, we propose different solutions. And we have different, I would say, people or views of our people who we represent on different problems. So the starting point is not the same, therefore we cannot apply only one principle. One thing that I think is a problem of Europe is that we are reactive, where we should be more proactive. And being proactive, you need to have an agreement. That's where the problem goes back to. But I think we need to still look at our values and maybe re-agree if we still agree on our values, because the values are always or give the direction. And if we are faithful to the values that we have, then we will always find solution. Sometimes we want, and Kyriakos said that, we are problem solvers. But when you deal with a problem, there's different levels of solutions you can find. An easy one, quick one, or a strategic one. And we need to have, in certain cases, very quick decisions and solutions. But we should not forget about the long term. And that goes back to Victor and Andrej, where they said we are missing a strategy. On these issues, we cannot close our eyes before migration. Some say stop migration. Others say manage migration. Well, we don't have agreement, but we need to resolve this because this is a problem that we'll be facing whether we want it or not. It's happening, and we should have a proactive solution to it. So that's my view on how we should approach. Always go back to the values and look for agreement. And we are from democratic parties where we deal with coalitions. And politics, one thing that we need to say about politics is an art of possible. And that's what we should look on this level as well. And if we are looking for getting the compromise, getting the solution, I'm sure we will. But hopefully soon.
So the art of politics and looking into future, Mr. Janez Janša, what was put on the table when Slovenia took over the presidency? How do you see, and consequently, what is your personal view of the European future? Where do you see Europe in, let's say, 20, 50 years?
And everything in one sentence.
No, you'll be allowed more. But the time is really hard on us.
Yes. So. But first of all, I want to mention that we have another panel dealing with enlargement. And we put this panel in the program of the Bled Strategic Forum precisely because the enlargement is the debate about the future of Europe. So this is the crucial strategic debate about the future of Europe. And my vision of Europe is the same as it was the vision of the founding fathers. So Europe, whole, free, and in peace with itself and with the neighborhood. And this is not possible to reach without the enlargement. And this goal was not fulfilled with the Big Bang in 2004 when most of us entered the European Union. There are still many countries on the European soil which all deserve this perspective to be fulfilled. And I'm very sad that during the last 10 years, if you measure the agendas of the European institutions, if you measure the articles in European press, 90% of the topics were not dedicated to this strategic question, how to solve these tactical dilemmas to fulfill the strategic goal. But if we just measure this framework, 90% of those debates, also in some European institutions and the European press, were dedicated how to expel some member countries, not how to enlarge the European Union, but how to make it smaller. This is totally wrong way. This is not only substantially wrong way, it's also totally wrong message to the applicant countries. So we have to turn the tide. So, and thank you very much to President of the European Council. We agreed that we put the enlargement process in the priorities of this semester. So this is why we will organize the summit between all European leaders and the leaders of Western Balkans at the beginning of October next year in Slovenia. And Charles also put the Eastern neighborhood on the agenda for the Council in December. So this is first time after, I think, 15 years, we will deal strategically with, well, both areas, which are first to become next members of the countries from those areas, become next members of the European Union. And this is, I think this is the most strategic things. This is changing the attitude, turning around the narrative, speaking about the solutions, not how to create problems among ourselves.
Thank you. I will go now to the presidents of European institutions. What are your personal visions? First, Charles Michel, and then Mr. Sassoli.
No, two. Okay. Maybe just a few words. I'm convinced that our political generation, we are facing huge and very complex challenges. At the same time, we face this twin transition. We have discussed a lot about that. Point one, we are facing this COVID crisis. This is also a huge effect for the world, and we understand also that there are a lot of changes at the international level. We have a strong alliance with the United States. We see what's happening in Afghanistan, and it's why more and more I feel a political convergence in Europe in order to decide that we should cooperate much more at the geopolitical level. And this is what we have tried to do the last months when we are addressing our relationships with China, with Russia, when we will discuss with our friends in the Western Balkans, in the Eastern Partnership. A more geopolitical union, it's not a dream. We need to be concrete, we need to be more operational. This is what we are trying to do, point one. And point two, in one word, I'm totally convinced that this unique political project in the world, 27 member states, maybe more in the future, all together, which decided to cooperate, to coordinate. This is what we need for the future. And for the future, if we want more security, if we want more stability, if we want more prosperity, if we want more freedoms, if it is what we want, we will need more cooperation, more coordination. It will be difficult. We will face obstacles. We will have different opinions about migration, about the prosperity, about Fit for 55, about all those topics. But the first condition is the mutual understanding, to understand what are the different opinions about around the table, and second, the political will, the political courage in order to be able to take a step together in the same direction.
Sì, no, grazie. Io sinceramente sono molto preoccupato delle affermazioni che ho sentito dal primo ministro Vučić.
What I heard from Prime Minister Vučić.
E credo che dovrebbero preoccupare tutti.
And I think that everyone should be worried about that.
Perché un paese come la Serbia, che era spinto da una grande tensione per entrare in Europa, oggi
really had this push to join, is now disappointed.
Questa delusione
so this disappointment
è un danno enorme.
Is a major and immense damage.
Io credo che con pragmatismo
I believe that
i processi di adesione possano essere corretti.
The accession process can be adjusted with pragmatism,
senza lasciare i paesi dei Balcani occidentali per 10 anni ad aspettare delle novità che non arriveranno mai.
Decades waiting for news, for changes that will never come.
In questo momento, in questi mesi,
at the moment, I mean these very months,
tutti i nostri governi sono impegnati in processi di riforme per ottenere i soldi del recovery fund.
In order to cash in, the recovery funds money.
Anche l'Italia deve fare molte riforme.
Italy too needs to carry out very many reforms, otherwise no money.
Ma è mai possibile
I wonder,
che noi non siamo in grado di dire ai paesi che vogliono entrare nell'Unione Europea
can't we tell the people who wants to join
una tabella di riforme con tempi certi?
A certain timing with a timetable. Why can't we do that? We can do that. We can ask a timetable to countries belonging to the European Union, but we can't ask them. Countries that have been waiting for decades, for 10, 15 years, they want to join, they ask us to join our family.
Io credo che questo sia paradossale.
I think it's paradoxical.
Allora i meccanismi di adesione con pragmatismo possono essere corretti.
The process must be updated, adjusted with pragmatism.
Magari aggiungendo severità, ma tempi certi.
Stricter, but we have to have a certain timetable.
Le opinioni pubbliche dei Balcani
the public opinions
occidentali
of the Western Balkan
a
countries
sperare l'impossibile.
left behind, hoping for the best or for the impossible.
Seconda questione.
Second question.
Sono molto breve.
I'll be very brief.
Così come mi hanno preoccupato le affermazioni del presidente Vučić, mi preoccupano anche le affermazioni di Viktor, del primo ministro Orban,
what Prime Minister Orban said,
quando dice che lui non vuole gestire il fenomeno migratorio, ma lo vuole bloccare. Siccome la storia spesso è maestra di vita, non vorrei che si ripetesse per l'Unione Europea quello che già è avvenuto per l'impero romano. Non custodire le nostre frontiere. Non gestire i flussi migratori. Può portare a farci travolgere. Ecco perché sono preoccupato di questo atteggiamento. Sulle soluzioni discutiamo. Il mio motto resta quello dell'Unione Europea. Uniti nella diversità.
The one of the European Union, united in diversity.
Thank you. Okay, to wrap up the debate, I would ask the other speakers to be really brief. What, in your opinion, I'm sorry for that because there's quite a lot of you, what, in your opinion, is key for the future of the European Union? And let's stick to one sentence now. Ms. Šuica.
I will not be able to say this in one sentence, but since I'm in charge of Conference on the Future of Europe, I really want to thank the Slovenian presidency for having this as one priority. Now we have to come to the substance of this. And if I may reveal the secret today here, on the hub of the conference, which is multilingual digital platform, until 15th of August, we thought that the high priority will be health. But you wouldn't believe health is at the bottom. High priority, according to our analysis, two priorities are for our citizens: European Green Deal, climate change, and European democracy. And health, although President von der Leyen said last year in the State of the Union speech that she thinks that health will be on the top, it is not. This means that all of you are not there, that still Brussels bubble is on the hub, which is the multilingual digital platform. So this is to misuse this audience to come to digital platform, to share your ideas and to see what is the real, what are the real interests of our European citizens. So I think, and also 67% are male and only 33% are women there. So I invite everyone there. And young people are there from 19 to 39 years old. So we need everyone, all ages, genders, people from all corners of Europe to come to the platform and to share their ideas. Then we will know what are the real interests of our citizens. Otherwise, it's again us who will create the path for the future of Europe, and it is not the intention of the conference. The intention is to listen to citizens and to see what is the core of their intentions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Heger.
Sorry.
Thank you very much. I think if European Union wants to grow, and I think it should grow, it needs to become a leader in the world politics. Because as we see, we're speaking about world problems more than about our own problems, which are closely related. And when you ask what's the key, well, the key is to look for the solution and having the will, as I said. And I think we will succeed.
Thank you. Mr. Orban.
Historical analogy is always useful. But those migrants who are coming now are all Muslims. So therefore, your experience how the Roman Empire collapsed is less relevant than the experience of the Hungarians and the Baltic countries who were earlier occupied by Muslim countries. So therefore, our experience is more relevant than the Roman story empire. And I'm sure that everybody who is sitting here, even the Holy Seat, is aware that those who are coming are all Muslims, and changing the composition of our continent. And it's a challenge to our cultural Christian heritage. On Europe, stay together. So my future vision on Europe, stay together. The question is how to stay together. The precondition is economic success. Without having economic success, there is no political basis for common values.
Mr. Babiš.
I didn't like your expression that Europe is soft power. We should be strong power. We should be strong economic power. We should be strong military power. And I perfectly agree with Victor about everything. And we should complete the roots, the 4 freedoms. Where is our internal market now? 235 billion euro. There is a potential of growth of all our countries. So we have to define the territory, and then we have really to be strong, because we have very strong competitors. China, Russia, and United States. Why we don't have any agreement, trade agreement, United States, and so on. So let's come back to these 4 freedoms, which are very far not completed.
Thank you. Mr. Plenković.
Well, I would say we need an agile Europe, both internally, in terms of the strength of the member states. We need to carefully manage our internal political and public debates, because this is where the problems rise. This is what I have diagnosed as the cause of, I would say, slower steps in advance, because we need to have the political parties, the societies, the people, the interest groups behind the project. This is, I think, essential. This is how I see the debate. When it comes to soft hard power, without any doubt, soft is fine, but without hard power, you're not influential enough in so interconnected world as it is today. On migrations, I think it's clear, as it cannot be more clear, that Wir schaffen das is over. It's going to be either small, managed, or humanitarian migration. This is what is happening now, and it won't move much further. But at the same time, I think as a country who is aspiring to become a member of Schengen and the Eurozone, who is strengthening our own defense capacities, I think we can contribute to this debate very constructively and bring along, especially in terms of Bled strategic forum, strategic necessity to integrate the Western Balkans countries into the European Union. Croatia will be your advocate and a friend, as it was for many years.
Thank you. Mr. Mitsotakis.
If someone were to listen to this debate knowing little about European politics, they would reach the conclusion that these people cannot agree on anything. But that is not true. So I want to end on a note of optimism. We have achieved a lot over the past year, and we talk little about our successes and a lot about our shortcomings. The RRF, the response to COVID, the digital certificate, climate and neutrality by 2050, all these are big achievements. Why did we manage to get to that point? Because we were able, as member states, occasionally to take a step back in order to make a great leap into the future. So for me, Europe is the art of the small compromises in order to reach big ambitions. That is what, in my mind, is at the core of us being stronger together. If in an era of unanimity, and Charles knows very well what we are talking about and how difficult it is, if we just think about the priorities of our nation states and not look at the big picture, we will not be able to be meaningful in a rapidly changing world.
Mr. Vučić.
First of all, I would like to say many thanks to David Sassoli and to Charles Michel. And Charles was right saying that European Union launched a very big project which will make tangible results in my country, and that is a great news for us. Just to answer to your question, I believe in united Europe, and I believe that only united Europe can answer properly to all upcoming crises. And I also believe that all of us should become a part of that united Europe. And we know all our tasks, we know how many things we need to change, but we also, I cannot say that we are begging someone, but that's our plea. just to understand that we all need, after all, each other. And just take a look on Serbs and Croats. We cannot agree on absolutely anything that happened in the past. It's even worse than between Slovenians and Croats. But I believe that without cooperating, speaking about Serbs and Croats with each other, we cannot survive in the future even. Not to say that we cannot improve our position. And I believe in not only reconciliation, but I believe in pragmatic and practical approach which will bring us to better solutions in the future, once again, united Europe. Thank you.
Mr. Parolin.
I think that the future of Europe depends very much on how it is capable, it is able to reinforce and reinvigorate its identity, an identity which is rooted in the ideals and the values and the suggestions of the founder fathers. I remember them because they are at the bottom of this project, of this construction. And many of these ideas and these suggestions and these values were Christian values. Then don't forget, Europe, don't forget, it is the appeal of the Pope, your Christian roots. And I think that in this sense it is important also in the future to keep an open, transparent dialogue with the churches and with the religious association, which is already provided by the Article 17 of the treaties of the functioning of the European Union. I think that this is the future of Europe, but it is a bright future, I think.
Thank you very much. Wrapping up on optimism that was presented, let's say in the last round, and somehow showcased that unity in diversity still functions, even though not functions best all the time, but still does. I'm thanking you for the debate and looking forward to forthcoming debates on the day. But at the very end, in 15 minutes, we'll begin with the second panel, former leaders panel. So we invite you to join again then and invite you to grab a cup of coffee. Thank you for your cooperation and this.